The days that followed, as you can imagine, were very a blur. I was numb. I felt void of anything. I just knew there were things I had to take care of, and so that's my mindset. Take care of this, move on to the next thing. Reality hits, and there are things you have to take care of. There's kids to get to school and bills to pay, and it had only been a week and we had just buried him, and all these things were coming to play, and I knew I had to pay for the service and all those things. And I was a stay-at-home mom. I hadn't had an income in September before Brian passed in November. He had changed careers. Not really changed careers, but made a lateral move in careers because he traveled so much, and we had had many discussions, and so he took this lateral move. And we had discussed the fact that all the insurances would be continued as far as health insurance. If we got sick or the kids got sick, we could go to the doctor. But that life insurance and universal life and mortgage insurance, all the things that were a package with this company, weren't going to be available until open enrollment. Well, what happened is when I spoke to the lady in HR, she said, "Miss Wade, I am so sorry to give you this news, but there's no insurance." And I said, "Oh no, ma'am, he filled the paperwork out, I have it." And she said, "Yes, ma'am, but it's not effective until the first draw of his paycheck at the first of the year. He's not eligible." And so it was in that moment that I realized there's no insurance. There's no more income. There's no more stability. What are we gonna do? It began to spiral for me so quickly. I have never known panic and anxiety, anything like that. Even with Brian passing, it was a different feeling. And I called Pastor Mark, and he came to the house with Robin, and I'll never forget because Mark came over to me and he took my hand and he said, "Stephanie, I don't know why you're going through this. I don't know why you lost Brian. I don't know why there's no insurance. I can only begin to imagine what you're going through." He said, "But you're gonna have to accept it." He said, "Please don't let this make you bitter." He said, "That would be the worst thing for Brian, is to know that this made you bitter." And he said, "All I can tell you is that God loves you as much now as he did the day before he took Brian." He said, "So you're gonna have to accept this and don't let it make you bitter, because if it was meant for you to have, you would have it. But the lesson and the blessings you're gonna get from not having this insurance money there for you is gonna be greater than if you'd had it. And I know you don't believe that now, but you will." It was at that time that I decided that I was not gonna allow myself to become bitter, and that I was not gonna allow myself to be stuck in the whys. As I began to call upon God and tell him that I wanted to rebuild my life and that I needed his help, that I knew my children were watching me, and that if I fell apart, they'd fall apart, and that I did have to shoulder a lot more now, that I didn't have my partner and I didn't have their daddy, and that I was gonna have to rely totally upon him. I would have to humble myself before him in every situation, and how I parented and how I went about my daily life and what job I chose to take and just everything. I had to invite people into my life to help me where I had never asked for help before. I found that my purpose was my children. They have been my greatest teachers. It's kind of funny because you think as a mom you'll be the one to teach them, but they have taught me so much more. They have taught me about an open heart and loving God, and bringing music back in our home, bringing worship back in our home, bringing laughter. And that Daddy's always there where we make room for him, when we talk about him at dinner, or when we say Daddy would have loved that, when we watch a movie, that he's always there. And they've taught me that, and we've never had him far away from us because of that. As it ended up, I found out we were going to lose our home. The main thing was to keep us all together and to keep us happy and healthy. And we learned very quickly a new definition of home. It has nothing to do with a building. And we learned really quickly what the definition of family is. And sometimes it has nothing to do with blood. So on this one morning, as we're about to pack up our house, I went outside and I started to have myself a little breakdown, a little pity party, and I was sitting on the step and I said, God, I know you're real. You are more real to me than my next breath. But I'm struggling right now and I need your help. And the word, be grateful came to me. And it made me angry. I was like, be grateful for what? Be grateful I'm losing my house. Be grateful that I'm doing this by myself. Be grateful my kids don't have their dad. Be grateful for what? I think I actually yelled that. And I looked up and there was a red bird in my yard. And I looked around and my beautiful flowers, my hydrangeas, and all the lilies Brian had planted for me, and I thanked God for them. I said, thank you for the birds, thank you for the flowers. Pretty much like that. But then my heart began to soften, and I felt the breeze, and I was sitting on my porch swing. Thank you for the sweet tea. Thank you for the life you've given me. And it was in that moment that I began to thank God for the 18 years I had Brian. To thank God that he had put so many beautiful memories in my children's hearts, that it would carry them through their lifetime. I thanked God that my children had such a role model, that they were already outstanding people with a moral compass like no other, and that they had been shown a Christ-centered life. I thank God that I got to share my life with a man like that, that I got to have 3 beautiful children with a man like that. I began to thank God that I would always see Brian and our children. I thanked him that Canaan was such a gentleman and that he was so intelligent like his dad. I told him how grateful I was that Karis had this amazing sense of humor, and she would throw her head back and laugh like her daddy laughed, and that he had given her eyes just like his, so that whenever I looked at him, I felt instantly connected to her daddy. And I thanked God that my Callie has this natural charisma where people are drawn to her, because they were drawn to Brian. And he always said, if I do nothing else in life that makes somebody feel better when they leave me, that's all I want to do. And she purposes her life the same way.